with the corn chopping, there is a little worksheet like we have been doing that will go along with it. So, we'll kind of answer those questions just before the end of, today. If we maybe missed a question, we can kind of cover that. So if you guys have that, I'll have it up. But if for some reason I don't, you can help me to make sure that we get all these questions answered. The other thing, and I haven't posted it yet, but I will post it. Probably either maybe later today or probably tomorrow. I'm going to post something on chemical applications. We're going to start jumping into kind of some spray rigs. We're going to talk about the different types of spray rigs and things that we have in farming. It's kind of one of the big things we do. Kind of coming up. We're getting out of a lot of the operations that are kind of going on out here and stuff. So, but the chemical applications is a pretty big part of kind of what we teach. And the other side to that is also going to be doing we're going to do a chemical, not chemical, let me think. We're going to be doing a sprayer calibration. And so we've got to try to set that stuff up. It's a really cool lab that we do in person. Trying to convert that over to, virtual stuff is, hopefully, going to have the same kind of effect, but, it's going to kind of help you out. We are going to have some equations. There's going to be some math, and there's some different things. If you're not really great with math, don't worry about it, okay? Because I'm pretty good with it, and I think I do a pretty good job helping you and teaching you. You will have equations. You will have, different things, stuff that you're going to have to plug numbers into. But understanding how much, fluid we're putting out, material we're putting out in the field is kind of an important thing. And understanding that's one of the bigger things that we do in this class. We do have a midterm that's going to be coming up, and that stuff will be on there. So I'm probably going to give you guys a couple different worksheets, a couple different examples that we're going to be working on. So we're going to kind of start that introduction later this week, and then next week in lab, we're going to actually start doing, some of those things, kind of showing you. And I may just have like some practice examples that we can do in person with some of those equations, either this week or the next week, the next week or the following week after that. But that's kind of my plan moving forward the next couple of weeks. And then your midterm, I'm not sure exactly when we have that set up, but we will have that set up. I don't know if it was this class or another class. Somebody asked me about when our midterm was at, and they were going to be out of town, and how that stuff was going to work. But just to let you know, when we do have that midterm, it will be posted up. I'll probably post it up for, a week, maybe a week and a half, and you will just take it whenever is convenient to you. For you guys, when it comes down to like the equations and stuff like that we're going to go over in the next couple of weeks, you will be able to use your equation sheets. And so you just got to make sure that you plug the numbers in right. I'm not testing you on memorizing those things. I want you to understand the concepts. I want you to understand where we're going to put things and how that stuff goes. I will have a study guide for you for that stuff. So we'll kind of have some questions on some of the stuff that we've kind of talked about and covered so far. But just kind of be aware of that and kind of understand that, and then look for that chemical application. So that way, when we come into next week, you've looked at that. It'll be a PowerPoint, and I'll do a little video over the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint's already posted on Canvas. I just haven't had my video edit of it yet. Any questions about that stuff? All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video on the corn chopping right now. If you have room, or if you've pulled up, I'll show you. I'll share this little screen with you. If I can find my stuff here. So there's just 9 questions that we've got to deal with right now. There's not, it's not a whole lot, but we're just gonna kind of go through it. What I'm gonna do is just play that video all the way through. It's only 4 minutes, so it's not very long. And then we'll kind of go back through and we'll answer some of the questions there. The video doesn't have really any words. You might be able to hear me talking to the operator a little bit. You can't really hear his responses, but I'll kind of cover those things. But probably to streamline it, make it a little bit easier, we'll just kind of play that video in its entirety, and then we'll go back through it and we'll answer all these questions here. So if I don't cover one of these things, like I said, let me know and we will go from there. So what I think I need to do is go ahead and share this screen here, make sure the audio is on so you can hear.
Mostly the stuff they do now is all done on the computer.
Yeah. How long does it take you guys to fill up one of these trucks? How many,
Well, kind of.
pretty quick then, huh?
Yeah, about 5 minutes, probably not that long. This one's not that tall. I think that's a-
That little rod is just kind of your guide that you use.
Yeah, well, it keeps the corn, the tall corn from falling on the other side.
Oh, gotcha.
Plus it's tight too, it's not tall corn. We have to fall cover and stuff.
Oh, so it would kind of fold it down a
Yeah.
little bit.
That is actually small truck shop, but they make a bigger difference.
This stuff is nothing.
10, 12 rows. Nice. What's that?
All right. Oh, Joseph left. Okay. So I know there's not, a whole lot, right? Because we didn't really edit it, but just kind of give you guys some of the visuals, let you kind of see, some of the stuff that's in here. And I may try to maybe answer some of these questions if I have it up here. kind of in order, so that way we kind of makes it a little bit easier. So this, we're chopping the corn up. You can obviously see that stuff, kind of, the stalks and all that kind of stuff that are, getting in. It's all getting ground up, and they're basically pumping it into that truck, that kind of runs along the side of it. Does anybody know what we call chopped corn like that? There's kind of a specific term that we use. If you're kind of into the animals, been into that, you may know.
Silage.
Silage, yeah. And so what we call, even when this stuff is growing, we call this stuff a silage corn. And it's, predominantly going to be for animal use. It's not going to be for human consumption. So it's not like a sweet corn. And there are some differences between, the two of them and, just kind of flavor. If you've ever gone out into a field and you've eaten some of this silage corn, you might find that the corn tastes disgusting because it's not the same exact stuff as sweet corn. A lot of the times, like if you've ever been in like a corn maze, they're going to use silage corn. And it's pretty easy to identify silage corn by a couple different things. One, silage corn is typically going to be a lot taller than just a sweet corn. Sweet corn's typically going to have shorter stalks, where these things are going to be 6, 7, 8 feet tall for silage corn. So the stalks and stuff like that are going to be a little bit taller. And the other side to it is, and I didn't know this until, I think last year. But do you guys know how many ears of corn are on a silage corn plant? Typically, how many ears of corn are on there?
I think there's 2.
Typically on silage corn, there's only 1. They do sometimes have 2, but most of them are only going to have 1, which kind of surprises me quite a bit. And I wasn't sure, right? I didn't believe that. My father-in-law told me, he's like, silage corn only has 1 because he's got a buddy that, does, corn and, handles that kind of stuff. And I said, there's no way it's got 1. And sure enough, I went out to one of these fields and, like I said, a majority of them have 1. Sweet corn's typically going to have, maybe 2 or 3 corn stalks on each one. Now, what we're doing with this stuff, we're actually, chopping this stuff up, we're turning this stuff into, into animal feed, right? But the chopper, let me try to go forward here and try to let you see this chopper a little bit better here. There we go. So this chopper actually goes by, a couple different names. It doesn't just, here we kind of call it a chopper, but you may hear it. Let me see if we can get a good shot of that. But we have different names. You might hear it, as a forage harvester. You might hear it as a silage harvester. You might hear a forager. If you hear the term chopper, all of those things are going to mean the same exact thing. Really kind of depends. And that's kind of the funny thing with equipment is a lot of times equipment may have, one name here, where if you go somewhere else, Midwest or, East Coast, you might have the same exact piece of equipment that's just called something else. You can kind of relate that to like, soda versus pop. It's the same exact thing, just depends on where you go, what term you're going to hear. So if you hear the terms like forage harvester, silage harvester, forager, or chopper, it's really all kind of relating to the same thing. And essentially what this thing is doing is it's taking that stalk, it's taking the ear of corn, it's taking everything, and it's combining that all up, into that little, chopped up. If we can get a good shot of that. I'll scoot it forward here. You see a lot of material just kind of flying around, a lot of lightweight stuff. But all that material that's flying in, come on, I know I have one over here. There we go. Where's it at? There you go. So all of that stuff, right, it's taking the stalks, it's taking everything, and it's basically just mashing that stuff up. Animals are going to be able to digest that material, right? And so we're using that full plant material. We're not just trying to grab the ears of corn. Like if we were doing something and it was sweet corn, we're not going to be messing with the stalks. We don't want that. We're not going to eat that. We as people can't digest that stuff, but animals can, right? So we use that thing, we use that whole plant, and that's going to help provide them the food, the nutrients that they need. To be able to load this truck, I don't know if you heard me in that video, but you can't hear him. And I do have the full video, but I didn't want you guys to have to sit there and watch, the whole time that it takes to load this truck. But in reality, it doesn't take that long. It was about 5 or 6 minutes to load one of these trucks. So they're going around and they're kind of doing kind of a circular pattern. in this field. This is actually out in our center pivot field that we have. And so we have a center pivot irrigation that basically is going to irrigate this whole field, but they're just doing kind of a circular pattern in different sections. They kind of break those things up. And that's typically what they do, is what the guy was telling me, is they just kind of go around and they're just basically cut. The truck's going to run alongside of it, and he's going to be able to allow these things to fill in. But it's about 5 to 6 minutes for the length to actually fill up these trucks. So I'm not 100% sure on how many trucks they had. I know they had at least 3 trucks. They may have had 4 or 5 trucks that were running. So when these things get filled, kind of like on the almond harvesting where we had the transfer carts that were taking it and dumping it off, these trucks are going to do pretty much the same thing as the transfer carts and almond, right? It's got to take the stuff that we're harvesting in the field, and it's got to be able to move that to a different location. Now you may have asked, or you may have thought, oh wait, let me see. We'll get down to that question. What's the purpose of the bars in front of the chopper? So these bars right here, you can see this kind of bar. You can see this bar that's kind of right on top right here. And there's kind of a good example of this, almost kind of like right in here. And I'll kind of play this thing right here. But notice how this corn is really tall. The purpose of this bar that's up on the top is just to kind of help keep that corn fed into that head. So it kind of folds that corn down instead of folding it over onto the cab and then missing some of those things, as well as these bars that are kind of down, kind of lower here. So I'll just play this section real quick so you can kind of see that. So some of that, in the field that we have here, that corn's not really tall, but you can see some of that stuff as it was, kind of raised up above that bar, how it's just kind of taking that corn and just kind of help keeping that stuff down, really keeping it fed into the head and making sure that we're getting, all that material, everything's getting fed into that and it's getting chopped up and then put in the truck. I think we already answered how many ears of corn the corn plants typically have. Okay, again, they can have, 2, but typically, it's about 1 for the plants. How we load this truck evenly, I think I have a good example kind of back here. You'll notice that this truck is running alongside and they're just kind of following around. When they went to go to the corners, the guy would slow down a little bit in this machine, obviously, and that truck would just kind of have to slowly kind of make that turn with them. But they definitely have to have communication. They have, radios, CB radios on the inside. And so he's able to kind of communicate, as the operator of the harvester, he's able to communicate with the truck drivers and let them know, hey, pull forward, pull back, and they can do that as they're kind of going along. The other thing that you're going to notice is that this boom that we have right here is going to be on hydraulics. And so as the operator of the harvester, he can actually take that boom and swing it one way and the other to help kind of fine tune and kind of fill up. We don't want to fill up just in one spot and then have that stuff overflow, because it's going to create like a pyramid. Again, if you think kind of with the almonds and stuff, how we had that tractor that was hooked up to that truck, we would pull that thing forward, we would pull it back as we filled those things up. This is going to do the same thing that stuff's going to do. So that way you're filling up this truck and you're getting a nice even load. I'll play that real quick so that way you can kind of see that. Check. All right, there you go. So as the operator of this thing, he's having to do, quite a bit. He's looking, in those rows, making sure that he's staying straight. There's no GPS, that they're using, although they do use GPS. Depends on the field, depends on what they're doing. But in this instance, they're not using any GPS, to harvest this field. They was just basically doing it by the feels of it. But, he has to go through, he's got to make sure that he's running down these rows. He's got to kind of check his boom, make sure he's filling that truck up. And you got to do that in coordination with the other truck and making sure that they're kind of staying on top of stuff. I'm just going to play a little bit more and we'll stop it where we can see the head of this thing again. One thing real quick, I don't think this is kind of a question, but you'll notice it's got like a little door on this truck right here. They have hydraulics, so that way when they're transporting these things, sometimes they may be transporting them, down the road a couple miles, or they may be transporting them, pretty much right next to where they need to. But what am I going to do? Yeah, okay. But you'll see this kind of hydraulics will lift up and it'll close this door so that way that material doesn't fly out. A lot of that is just very lightweight material, and if they're driving fast, you're going to lose that stuff. So they seal it up by closing that with hydraulics. Right here, you can see kind of the turn that we were making in that field there. And you'll see him kind of like back up a little bit, and that truck has to kind of slow down. Okay, so right here we can kind of see, kind of on the side right here. As that corn gets pulled in, you're driving through, you've got these little cutter heads that are spinning. Okay, there are 4 sets of these cutter heads that are kind of moving. And then there's, a whole bunch of blades that are on the inside. I think I've got maybe another shot of that as well. Might be right here where we can see. A little bit quick, but you can see there's kind of sets of these things kind of on that bottom corner. There's a lot of those blades are just basically twisting, turning, and they're just chopping that stuff. They're cutting those things up. Obviously, those things are going to have to be maintained, because they're going to have wear and tear as we go through. The machine has to be greased, on a daily basis with all those moving parts. It's going to do that. And then, so we got the 4 main cutting heads that go in the front, and you can see kind of in the back right here, if I can get my screen off of it, where all that stuff gets in, there's kind of some more grinding wheels. There's some more choppers. They're all kind of working in conjunction, working in unison with each other to basically do this. I don't know what the length of this one was, but like most machines, you can get different lengths of choppers that are going to do different different widths throughout that field. I want to say this one's probably about a 14 foot, but I'm not 100% sure. I didn't actually take a tape measure to it and measure this stuff. But let's see, we can do that. So there are 4 sets of heads that are on these things, that we're using. When these trucks go out and they leave this, essentially what they're going to be doing is they're going to be, placing them on a couple different things. They could be putting them into a silo, which, over here, we really don't use silos a lot. That's more of like a Midwest thing. So if they're chopping corn, for animal feed, they're going to store it in silos. They're going to, keep that stuff and kind of hold that, maintain it. Sometimes they can use the silos to kind of hold it, to wait for prices to go up if they're trying to sell that, or if they've got silos, on a farm to kind of hold it so that way when they need to feed it, they can feed it. But what you see here, and I'm not 100% sure what we were doing here because I've seen kind of both of these things at Fresno State, but you're either going to put it in a silage bunker or you're going to put it in the little silage bags. And this is the silage bags here, at least in California, is probably a little bit more predominant. And you can kind of see some of these things. Let me try to find a good shot. That one might be a good one right here. So on this, little silage bag, right, we're basically taking that stuff and we're putting it into a bag, which is going to kind of seal these things up. And it's going to hold that as we start to feed that stuff. We're just going to break into that bag. We're going to pull those things out. You may see them get covered, with tarps. You may see the feed get covered. A bunker is basically just, let me see if I can't just go silage bunker. I'll show you guys a picture of that. We do have some of these where we kind of store some feed, but they're pretty small, which is why I think they were putting it in silage bags. But some of these examples here where you've got, this is kind of similar to what we've got here at Fresno State. I'm gonna pull it up. So, man, what am I doing here? Let's do this. Let's go open image. Because we want just the image here. So right here, you can see this is obviously, pretty big, but you can kind of store the feed into there. We do that. We get stuff delivered in small quantities and small chunks. But the silage bags, okay, again, you do see those. We do have some of these things at Fresno State as well. And a lot of that silage corn is actually going into just, feed the animals here at Fresno State. We do kind of utilize that and kind of try to be a little bit what we call vertically integrated. Some of it we do sell, and then some of it we do use here. It really kind of depends because there's different unit managers. But some of it we do use here, and then some of it we sell off. We don't really have, it really depends on the quality. I know the hay, I'm pretty sure the hay that we have here, we sell off, but I think the silage corn we're actually utilizing for the animals here on campus. Sometimes we can get with hay especially, and we've got some stuff that we're going to do on hay, and I'll show you guys some videos with that. But the hay, we're worried about like quality on the hay, and so some hay is like good for like milking cows, and that's kind of one of the bigger things when we're milking cows. We want to make sure that they have a good high quality feed, and so if we're not able to provide that, we can sell that hay off to another company, and then that's going to make some money, and then the dairy will buy higher quality hay from somebody else. The way that Fresno State works with their units is there are different unit managers, and they don't necessarily correlate with each other. Sometimes that might sound like a bad thing, but it's different unit managers are trying to maintain and make money and provide the best quality product, and so we don't naturally just kind of switch over and always use the products that are grown from one. For animal products, we're not necessarily using the feed that we're growing on this campus because it may not make sense for the units to be able to do that. Some farmers that have, let's say like if you're a dairy farmer and you own, alfalfa, and you're growing that, or you're growing silage corn and stuff like that, typically what they're doing is they're growing it to reduce their feed cost, and they're going to directly put that into their dairies, and they're concerned about the quality and stuff like that, and so they're going to make sure that it is what they want. They're able to kind of control that, and then it's also going to reduce their cost. But here at Fresno State, like they act like different entities, although we are just one entity. We do kind of keep them separate, so we don't want to rob from one and say, hey, we're gonna do the silage corn for free, because then it hurts the forage crop units that we have, and they're not going to be making money like they would. And so there's kind of a balance there where we're kind of doing both, both things, where we're selling it and using it here on campus. Hopefully that answers your question well enough, Jared. Let me see. So yeah, so anyway, they take those things and they can basically just kind of put it into different companies, put it into different stuff, and then kind of at the end right here, you can kind of see that they're you see how much material is there, and then as we're kind of walking through that field, you can see there's really not a whole lot. We've got some of these corn stalks that are left up. You've got some kind of dead material that's kind of the inside. This is we've done in this field, we've done different things in the field. Sometimes we might grow like a winter wheat in this field. Sometimes we may just grind that stuff under. We just maybe use it as a holding place to keep the soil in place. But we will go through and we will kind of disc this field up. We'll disc those corn stalks underneath. In some parts of the fields, we may not do that. And we're going to get into some tillage and stuff like this, probably after we do the spraying applications and all that kind of stuff. We're going to get into tillage equipment. And so that's going to be like disking, it's going to be ripping and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about no-till, primary tillage versus secondary tillage. There's a lot of stuff that we do with working the ground and kind of, making it to where, that plant material is going to get incorporated back in, whatever's left. And it's also going to allow us to basically plant, because this field, kind of as you see right here, it's not going to work very well for us to plant things in. So there's different things, different equipment that we're going to deal with, that we're going to take through the field, that's going to allow us to prep this field for the next crop that we have going through. But pretty much everything that is there, minus I think that's about 6 inches of corn stalk, that stuff is all getting turned into silage, and that's going to be all used for animal feed. So there's not really a whole lot of waste when it comes to that, when it comes to the silage corn. Everything's being used. We're not kind of throwing stuff away. That's 6 inches of the corn stalk that's left over. And then, like I said, we just disc that stuff underneath, and it basically kind of frees that stuff up. Let you see it real quick here. So you can kind of see right there is a pretty good shot. Gosh, dang it, come on. Pretty good shot where you can see kind of that corn. Some of these spots on here, if you notice, there's spots like right here where the corn's really low, or as we were driving through, and there's the spots that are real high. It all has to do with how much water, what the soil is like in that particular area. Sometimes that you might hit maybe a little bit of a clay area or maybe a sandy area. It's maybe not going to retain moisture. Maybe it's going to have too much moisture. Ideally, we'd like to have all the conditions right, and you'd like to see a field that is nice and level. But with this, the silage corn out here in the center pivot irrigation, we typically don't get a very uniform height. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. I don't know if it's the soil conditions. I don't know if it's, the center pivot itself, the way that irrigation system is. We do have other silage corn that we deal with, and we'll probably show you. I know we have a video on GPS and planting silage corn, but we're not going to be able to get one because we're not going to be planting this semester. But some of the other fields that we have, we actually do just a flood irrigation on them as opposed to a sprinkler irrigation. And we tend to get a little bit more uniform height with those ones. But again, it just depends on the conditions. If you guys have seen like center pivot irrigations, it's not really commonplace over here in California. But if you go, up to like Washington, if you go to like Nevada, Arizona, kind of a lot of those places, you will actually see these. If you've ever flown in a plane and you've seen the circles there, that's all just, basically center pivot irrigations. And they could be circles, they could be, half circles, they could be, quarter or 3/4 circles. It really just kind of depends on the layout. But you will see those circles there, and it just all has to do with center pivot irrigation. I don't think I have a picture. Let me see if we got a picture of the whole irrigation system there. I do, maybe. Let me zoom through here. Right. You can kind of see the center pivot in the background. There's the center boom is like right here where that truck is at. There you go. You can see that center boom there. And what that boom does, it's got wheels, right? It's got little sprinkler heads that drop down. And that thing is it's pretty long. You can kind of see it stretches all the way over. We got pistachios kind of in this back. And it's all motorized there. And so that thing is just going to roll around, and it's basically going to irrigate slowly. So it just, sprinkles on, and those things are going to turn once you set those things up, and it moves all those sprinkler irrigation units. It does crush some of the corn when it first goes through, so you do lose a little bit. We plant these corn. You can see we've planted them in rows, kind of in that circle area. But then once you kind of run the center pivot, it does kind of have the width of the tires. You can kind of see in that far background. It's going to crush those plants, but it's very minimal in the grand scheme of things. So we're not really worried about what we lose as far as this crop goes. But we don't plant these things in a circle. We plant them in straight lines across, and then the irrigation is done kind of in a circle, so it kind of arches there. But yeah. I think that's all we have for that. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, I want to do that.
I have a question. I missed what is done with the chopped corn after it leaves the trucks. Did you say it was just kind of dispersed, or?
No, so what we do is we're either going to put it in a silage bunker or a silage bag,
Okay.
and it's going to be stored for feeding. And the reason we put it in things like that is to kind of keep moisture and keep different things out. From getting it to mold and different things. There's a whole like science to that, and I am not a feed person by any means. But they do it to kind of protect it and keep it, so that way as they're feeding it throughout the year, they have that feed that's readily available, and they can kind of pull that stuff out, because it doesn't all just get fed all at once there. So
Okay, thank you.
any other questions? All right, look for the chemical applications. I'm going to talk about some of the pieces of equipment. Again, the PowerPoint is already posted in Canvas, but I'll go through and I'll have like a little video of me kind of going through that. So that way, some of the stuff that maybe doesn't make sense, hopefully we can kind of explain that. And we're going to be jumping into kind of some of the spray rigs, different things. I'll try to get some videos. I don't know if they're going to have, I don't know if we have anything really going on spray wise right now, but I will try to at least get maybe some pictures or some videos of some of the equipment, so that way we know kind of what we're talking about as far as that stuff goes. So that's kind of what we're going to be jumping into next week. If you guys don't have anything else, you're free to go. If you have any questions, feel free to stay. If you want to ask, after everybody's gone, I will hang around for that.